Hello everyone, I am Folashade Anozie and you are welcome to another episode of the SNC Podcast, a show helping people better understand the intriguing world of music, arts and entertainment through insightful conversations with African artists, creatives, lawyers, music and business executives. I hope everyone is safe and well. On this episode, we are talking about navigating Nollywood, behind the scenes film photography, treatment of film production crews in Nigeria, and growing as a film entrepreneur. Our guest is Chukwuka Osakwe, an emerging Nigerian photographer, filmmaker, and director. Chukwuka's filmmaking career started off as a unit photographer on movies such as New Money, The Setup, Who's the Boss, Omogeto the Saga, and Shantytown. He is also an assistant director and has worked in that capacity on movies including Day of Destiny, Superstar, and several Netflix yet to be released titles. In 2021, Chukwuka made his directorial debut with his short film A Day in September and has since gone on to direct several videos including music artist David B's special and JTech's ad which featured Dorothy Bacho. Chukwuka is also the co-founder and creative director of Camroll Picture Studios, a visual production and photography business based in Lagos, Nigeria. Hello, Chukwuka.
Hola, Folashade.
First of all, I want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you because you are on set of a movie, but you took out time from your busy schedule to be here. So I really just want to tell you that I appreciate it and thank you so much. So before we start off with the conversation and why you are here, I want to talk a bit about the conversation that we had when I called to say, can I interview you? And I started off asking you that, what would you like me to address you as? Would you like me to address you as Chukwuka or Chuks? And you said that you'd prefer Chukwuka, right?
Yes.
Can you explain? Because I loved and I love that point. So I want to can you just explain the reason you gave as to why you prefer Chukwuka?
Okay, so growing up, even till now, I'm a very shy kind of person, right? So when I was done with secondary school, I wanted to evolve and change completely. I wanted to be more of who I thought I should be at that time. So I stopped bearing Chukwuka and started bearing Chuks because, that was the first step, changing my name. And then 10 years after, I just realized that, you know what, every time people say Chukwuka, they're actually praising God, to say, because my name means God is great. So every time you say Chukwuka, you're saying God is great. So I just felt, you know what, I'll go back to people praising God.
No, and I loved it because I can I can't relate, Sha, in the sense of, because my name is obviously Shade, and I think that when people call me Fola Shade, usually I'm in trouble. One person that used to do that is my former boss, Mr. Babaiko. Every time you say Fola Shade, I'm like, oh Lord, what have I done now? But when you said that, I just thought it was so interesting because I don't know if you have observed as well. I have seen a lot of people now bearing their full names as opposed to, I think maybe as we get older, there's something about maybe people just realize that, oh, my name means something and I want to walk in the meaning of that name. Mm-hmm. Would you agree that that's what it is? Absolutely.
It's a lot of maturing that happens. You get more authentic with yourself. I think it cuts across pretty much even our music industry, for instance. Years ago, it was just, we loved foreign music, but now we're getting to appreciate Africa more, sell Africa more, becoming more authentic. And I think that's cutting across even in our personal lives.
Yeah. And I think maybe that's why we see a lot of older people who get upset when you have either Nigerians that travel out of the country, or maybe they were born in the diaspora, who, quote unquote, they funkify their names, or they make their names Western. And you see a lot of older people say, why are you doing that? Why are you taking away the essence of who you are? Why are you having to change the way your name is spelled or pronounced? If people in the West can pronounce Tchaikovsky, they can pronounce Arnold Schwarzenegger, all these names, why do you have to be the one to say Fiola Sade, you know? So I just wanted to talk about that, because I was like, oh, it's such a, I guess it was just such a great conversation that we had before, you know? So thank you for sharing that insight. And when we were also speaking, you had mentioned that you moved to Lagos to pursue your career in Nollywood, right?
Yes.
So can you talk about that?
So I grew up for the first 10 years in Delta State, and then we moved, because every time my parents moved, we would obviously move, and we moved to Benin City. But I pretty much stayed the rest of my childhood in Benin before moving to Lagos. I studied at the University of Benin. I studied human physiology, but at the time I knew that there was no way I was going to do physiology. It was the 9-to-5-ness of the career that I just didn't like. So when I realized that, okay, this gift was there and I could, turn into what it's becoming right now, I just opted for that option. And Lagos was the best place. So.
And when did you realize that you had a gift? Because your gift is photography and filmmaking. Let me start with photography. When did you realize that I think I have a gift with photography or taking pictures?
It was probably around when I got into uni. So I, just for a bit of backstory, I grew up in a family that pretty much appreciates freezing moments for memory, so to say. My mom loves pictures. My dad had a camera when we were growing up. So I was surrounded by that idea that you freeze moments, you keep moments, for the future. And every occasion, graduations, birthdays, everything was celebrated with pictures. We would go to studios and take pictures. So I think that was where the love started from. I just got fascinated by everything the photographer was doing. And usually when you go to the studio to take pictures, then when you're done, you get your pictures in a few minutes. So you go to the waiting area and wait. But I would follow the photographer to the editing room and sit with him. And it was just really fascinating how what we saw in the studio when he shot it, and then the final picture that he gets to give to us. So I started to fall in love with magazines as well. Internet was not really that big then. So that was the closest thing I could get in terms of reference to what good pictures should look like. So I'd immersed myself in magazines. So when I go to the studio next time, I'm able to give poses to my cousins, my sisters, and say, okay, do like this, So when I got into school and I saw that, man, physiology was not going to be it, I just told my folks that, okay, I think I want a camera, and I wanted to start photography. So it was that foundation from the family that led me to this.
And how did your parents take that news? I think typical Nigerian parents are like, hey, or they're like, oh, that's great.
I don't even think my family is a typical Nigerian family. It's not like we're any fancy.
No, yeah.
My folks, my parents are like my siblings. It's like 5 children living in the house. They're very open-minded, so to say. There's nothing I think any of us would want to do that they would not support. I remember when I wanted to get my camera and I sat my parents down and told them I wanted to get a camera to start photography. My father asked me, how much do you have? That was the only question he asked me. I didn't have any money, but I lied and said, well, I had XYZ amount of money. And I said, okay, go back. When you have this certain amount, come back, I'll give you the rest. Then I started saving, and then he added the rest and got my camera. So they were pretty much supportive. Even my mom would try to refer me to her friends for stuff.
Something just always warms my heart. Because, a lot of times the stories we hear as a Nigerian parents are never supportive of things that their kids do. Or maybe they're not, maybe the word is not never supportive. They force their kids to do things because they're trying to keep up appearances, or because maybe they don't want their kids to suffer, which is understandable, right? So they got you the camera, or you got the camera with the support of your parents. How did you now begin to hone your skills? Because having a camera is one thing. Developing that eye for photography, is another thing entirely.
Like I said earlier, magazines were pretty much the first foundation. So that already exposed me to what people were doing outside Nigeria. When I got into school and decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to do photography, and I needed to practice with my camera, I was then faced with challenges. So I couldn't take pictures on campus then because I don't know what it was. The security officials in my uni were not exposed enough, I think. They would arrest you for just holding a camera. I'd been arrested a couple of times. So I realized that, okay, if I wanted to learn, I needed to practice. But if I needed to practice, I would not be able to practice in school. And I was pretty much living in school, even on holidays. I had my accommodation in school, not school hostel, but like an accommodation. So even on holidays, I barely went home. I was mostly in school. So this is where I live, and I cannot practice photography around here. I needed a solution. So I knew that if I went by myself to get to the authorities to get permission, it would be harder. But if we went as a body, it would be easier. So I founded a photography club and then we were able to go through the school and practice photography. All the years spent in school, I pretty much used in developing the basics of my photography skill.
I don't want to rant, and I hate it because this show is about you. But I just say sometimes people in positions of power in this country, it be like, say, I don't know, like, what is it that there's always this restriction, this oppression that's always, I don't know what it is. I just don't know. Anywho, I'm glad that you're able to find that, growth. Now you have obviously been taking pictures for 7 years, and you've, worked on 11 films, right?
Way more now.
Way more, right? Yeah, obviously, yeah. But what was it about movies that made you say, I want to be an on-set photographer or a unit photographer? Because you could have done commercial photography, but, you said that this is the niche, rather, that, I want to focus on. So can you speak about what was it about movies that made you say, this is where I want to, build a career in?
Okay, so, like you probably already know, anybody who see my profile anyway, I'm a storyteller. So I'll have to start with telling you a story. When I was leaving uni, I had a friend who was returning to Nigeria from the UK. He wanted to not start music. He was doing music already in the UK, but he wanted to bring his music to Nigeria. And so at that time, I was pretty much helping him with things that a manager would do, even though I was not officially his manager. When he was ready to structure that path, he was then looking for a manager, and then I applied and I started managing him. He had a friend in the UK as well who was now in Nigeria and was successful in Nollywood. She was being managed by this lady, I can mention names, right? Osakwe. And he just thought that she was brilliant, and he liked how she was structured and as she had a system and how she managed the artists that she had. And he felt like that would be a good place for me to learn management. Because I was honest that I'd never managed anybody before, so I was pretty much learning on the job. So I sent her a mail, and she responded, sent me her number, and then communication started. Around the same time, she was employing for her company. She was expanding and needed talent assistants. So I applied, went through the phases of the interview, and then got the job. So my first day at work, I was to go with one of the actors to set. So that was my first encounter to anything film. Of course, I wasn't going there as a filmmaker. I was going there as a talent assistant, trying to be a manager. So the next day, or that night pretty much, she told me to send a couple of my work. Because somewhere in my CV, I'd written that, I ran a photography club and, I was a photographer. So she wanted to see some of the pictures I had taken. I didn't have a style. I didn't have a niche. I was pretty much shooting every and anything. So I just sent a bunch of pictures to her. And I don't know what she saw, but something in those pictures she saw made her think that I could do BTS photography. And then she told me that, okay, they were currently in pre-production for a film, New Money. And she thought I should be the BTS photographer. I didn't know what BTS photography was. So I went online, Googled what it was. And at the same time, around that time, that was when Wedding Party, I think, had just come out. The pictures did something to me that I don't know if everybody experienced the same thing, but when I saw the pictures from Wedding Party, the behind the scenes pictures, it made me want to see the film. And I just thought that was powerful. My first contact with the film already makes me want to see it. So I took screenshots of some of the BTS from Wedding Party and sent to her. And I asked her, was this what you want me to do? She said, exactly. So I went to set and pretty much said, hold my beer, and yeah, I did that. But of course, obviously my first BTS film was not as good as it would be now.
Of course.
But the more experience I had on set, the more it got better.
I think that's so powerful what you said about how, you seen the behind the scenes pictures of Wedding Party that made you want to see the movie. I think sometimes it's interesting how we may just overlook certain things, but everything makes it's like a symphony. Everything's working together to create the final product, right? Now, you wrote an article last year titled How Filmmaking Influenced My Photography. And when I read it, one of the things that I loved the most is that beyond just the article helping me to understand photo storytelling a bit more, I think as someone who's I would say, photography enthusiast, it just made me understand that there are certain things that you need to know that can help you become a better photographer, even though you don't say you're an expert, So can you talk about why you chose to write that article, or what influenced you to write that article?
So again, back to my bio, right? I always write something in my bio that says I'm passionate about people, growth and personal development. So it's beyond myself. If I learn something, I'm always excited to share with anybody that is willing to listen. And at the time, that was like a eureka moment. I had just found out that some of these things that I see on set, I could actually infuse them in my photography. I learn from observation, and it helps that I'm a photographer. You're literally the fly on the wall. So you see everything that is happening on set. You see more than most people would see because you're literally everywhere. So it helped me then to understand what the director was doing, what the DP was doing, and the synergy that both departments had. Shot sizes, I realized that, if they were going to show a character who was in a vulnerable state, they would use a very wide shot. And if they wanted to maybe help you connect more with the character's emotions, they would use a very tight close-up. It's not motion. I can't put motion in my pictures, but I can use the same tools. So if I frame a subject at one small corner of the frame and there's all this massive space, depending on how the character looks, what character is doing, you can sense that this character is in a certain, vulnerable state. If I shoot you and some really tight close up, say a child has a dramatic eye or something, you see all of that because the camera is focused on just where it wants you to see, which is just the face, the emotions. So I started to watch a lot of YouTube videos. I learned a lot from YouTube. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and it was just so fascinating how much of the tools that filmmakers had at their disposal to tell their stories. And I just felt like it's pretty much the same thing, because film is animated photographs. Photographs only just tell you what's happening in that exact moment. You're freezing that moment. But for film, it is several of those that come together in motion and then forms the animated motion picture that you watch and enjoy. So it was a eureka moment for me, and I felt like people should hear and know about this thing. So I wrote the article to help as many people, to tell better photo stories. And I just feel like if I'm going to do this BTS thing, because it's a pretty new niche in Nollywood. So if I get information that is helping my photography, it will be way better if tons of photographers have the same information and then there's healthy competition. It's not as interesting right now because there are not many people who associate as BTS photographers. We have photographers, producers to call any photographer to shoot on a film set. But it's different when you see an actual filmmaker photograph on a film set. So if I have this information, I wanted many more photographers to not just come in because they're photographers, but come in to be filmmaker photographers so that they can infuse the same tools, and then we can actually have healthy competition which would grow this niche of Nollywood.
No, even as a non-on-set photographer, it helped me, and I saved the article because I'm like, now when I'm trying to take pictures, the way I approach it from reading your article, I'm like, oh, okay, a wide shot would be better. So seriously, it's like, it's such a really great article. One of the things you had mentioned was about we don't have a lot of photographers in the behind the scenes sector. Why do you think that is? Like, is it that a lot of people is it that maybe because they feel like it doesn't bring a lot of money, or people want to be, I don't know, what's the reason?
So I think one of the many reasons why we don't have a lot of BTS photographers yet is awareness. I think we don't know, and it's beyond the photographers now. I'm talking from the production level. I think we don't know the value of BTS photography, which is why a producer would call any random photographer to shoot behind the scenes, right? There's a technique and style and process to shooting behind the scenes that a random photographer who is good at their job can come and get you great pictures, but these details and storytelling that a BTS photographer would actually bring is way different from what a regular, ordinary photographer would bring to the table. So first, awareness, definitely. I think that's the first reason. And then it's not as lucrative, because when there's no value, if the producers don't see the value in having a photographer on set, they're not going to pay you as much. I don't think there are many photographers on any film set who earn a lot of money. There are few, but not a lot, because they don't see the value yet. And I can't even begin to dive into the importance of behind the scenes. Like it's everything. I feel like the success of a film lies, to a great extent, lies in the hands of the pictures that the on-set photographer is going to get, because that's the first contact between the audience and the film. It's what they see, and what that does for you is it opens your production up to investors. Any of the VOD platforms could see your behind the scenes pictures and say, oh, this is good quality, because they can sense and see the production value just from the stills. And conversations could start off because they saw a great picture of your film set. So these are some of the reasons why I think we don't have a lot of photographers yet doing it. Awareness, and then it's not very lucrative right now.
Because you had mentioned that one of the first contacts that the public would have with the film would be the stills. But because I'm thinking that my first contact sometimes, a lot of times, is always the trailer as opposed to the stills. So is that why maybe some producers don't think that behind the scenes photographers are important? Because for them, they are more focused on the trailer. That is what people are focused on.
I mean, you can't take away the importance of a film trailer, right? A film trailer would do what a film trailer would do, but the trailer would literally be played for 1 minute and that's it. But these pictures are there. Like, you don't need a lot of data to view a picture, right? You literally can even make screenshots. Those pictures could even serve as references to other productions, So aside the trailer being 1 minute and shot and you see it and that's it, you don't have to post the trailer more than once. But with behind the scenes, you are constantly informing the audience of the product that you have, that you're about to bring to the market for a long period of time. If your marketing is going to take 2 months, you're not going to have 12 trailers that are going to be dropping. You have 1 trailer to drop. What happens between when you drop the trailer and when the film comes out? That's where we come in. The content we create is what we use for marketing, through when you first announce the project to when the project is released. And even after the project is released, years after the project is released, you can still use those pictures to sell the film. But you're not going to repost the trailer 5 years after. It's not the same impact or effect. But the pictures are still fresh, because if you employ a photographer who knows BTS and what he's doing, he creates content for pre-release, release, and post-release. So when the film is done, people have watched the film, they have an idea. They will then now have new questions. Questions like, oh, how was this scene shot? Was it a green screen? What were the challenges? So all of this can be told, all of these stories can be told with behind the scenes, both pictures and videos. But you can tell all of that story in one frame. You're seeing that it's a green screen. You're seeing where the camera was placed. You're seeing where the actor was sat or where the actor was standing. So all of that information you can't tell with a trailer. So I think it all comes down to awareness and information. If they know the value, it would be taken way more seriously than it is right now.
I think that's such a very great point that you made. I hadn't really thought about it, because again, like you said, which is so, I don't know, my mind is like, yeah, that's true. Because you really are focused on the trailer. But in between the trailer and the release of the movie, you can't keep on releasing the trailer every single day. So that's such a very interesting point that I had not even considered. Thank you for sharing that lovely insight, because I think, and again, hopefully, as the industry continues to grow, people behind the scenes photography becomes a mainstay. People see the value of what it can do to their movies, and more importantly, people get compensated appropriately. They are paid their worth. To your skill as a photographer, one of the challenges that photographers have is the issue of copyright. When you take a picture of someone or something, a lot of people may not know that once a photographer takes a picture of something or someone, the copyrights rest with that photographer, unless maybe there's a contract of service between the photographer and the client. How have you gone about navigating that challenge? I mean, I know you're working on set. That's work for hire. So obviously the copyrights would be the owner of the film would be the owner of the copyright. But when you do non-BTS work, how do you go about dealing with that issue?
So to be honest, I've never had to encounter that sort of challenge. Maybe because I've not done work for a certain class of people, I guess. I shoot everyday people. So they're not going to worry about how the picture is used. I think, I've not experienced it yet. So I cannot really say much on that because it's not my challenge right now.
Okay, that's a fair point, yeah. But hopefully, you don't encounter that challenge, and if you do...
I will get information now about it.
Yeah, make sure you have a contract of service, because I remember when I took pictures, shout out to Kwedi Dakwasalami, when he took my pictures in 2014 for my website. I think I was kind of moving mad a little bit, and he was like, when is Shade? The copyright is my own. Like, why are you, so it was such a learning. And I'm not saying that, I wanted to have the copyright. He was just making a point and making me understand that he owns the copyright.
What was your issue?
My issue was I was like, I don't want you to release them before
you do.
I do.
Okay.
We came to obviously he understood what I was saying. But I think that was also a teaching moment for me because at that time I was still in law school. So I don't know why it just didn't register in my brain that, the photographer owns the copyright. But that experience for me just made me understand that photographers need to have a contract of service, because we didn't sign one. But even if you don't sign one, it's still your own copyright,
Yeah.
Moving on to your career in Nollywood, like you talked about how working with Isioma gave you experience, because it's interesting. You started working with Isioma because you wanted to be a talent manager for a music artist. What happened to that person?
So to be honest, apology to David B. That's the artist's name. Yeah. I just knew that it wasn't for me. In many ways, my personality, first of all, doesn't match the industry. Music industry is tough. There's a lot of late night, there's a lot of partying because you need to network with people, It didn't match my personality. I didn't quite know the job, to be honest. I thought I'd researched, I'd read, but music management is way deeper. It's not, you need to have knowledge of many aspects of business generally, law, the legal aspect, financial aspect. It was a lot that I don't think I admitted early enough to myself that I couldn't do it. And I know this is funny to say, it's come from someone like me who is big on personal development, right? I don't think there's anything you cannot learn. If I wanted to code today, I feel like I can learn how to code and then code, right? But I think you just know where your strengths lie, and it didn't lie in music. So it was a tough conversation, but we eventually had it. We didn't have it when we parted ways, but we eventually had the conversation.
As someone who used to work in the music industry, I tell you are spot on. It doesn't fit everybody's personality or personalities. You have to know your strengths, and there's strength in admitting that this is not for me. There's no point beating a dead horse. Like, why are we doing that? Because you end up being upset. You end up frustrating the client, the talent you're trying to manage. So there's just no point in trying to do all of that. Now, you have been in the film industry for 5 years now, yeah? 5 years and counting. Has it been all you expected, or you're still discovering?
I think I'm still discovering. I didn't quite have an expectation when I came in. I stumbled on it. If not for Ishima Osaje, who saw something in the regular small Beanie boy and gave him an opportunity, I would not have known anything about Nollywood. In fact, to be honest, I was one of those people who would trash Nollywood then, so I didn't come in with any expectation. I just wanted to work and do a good job. And as I advanced in my career, I started to find out certain things, and it's now that I might have an opinion about Nollywood, but I came in with open hearts to just work and learn.
No, that's great. And speaking of trashing Nollywood, I think for an industry like Nollywood that is still growing and people are trying to make an industry despite all the odds, I understand when people get upset when people, quote unquote, trash Nollywood or give their feedback or criticism. As the famous Miss Erykah Badu said, I'm an artist. I'm sensitive about my shit. So I get it. But when you take a step back and you look at the criticisms that people have, some of them including that a lot of movies in Nollywood nowadays are more about glossy pictures and the storytelling is sorely lacking. What do you say about that? What are your thoughts about that, rather?
I don't know if I feel like Nollywood in terms of the art itself is in a good place. I feel like we're still growing, just like any industry. I feel like we're still the same way I mentioned earlier that it got to a point where you get to discover yourself and then become more authentic and choose to bear your full name. It's pretty similar to the same thing with Nollywood. I feel like Nollywood is getting to the point where we would fully embrace our story and our authenticity, and we're already doing that. All the projects I've worked on in the last 2 years, I have been authentically like Nigerian. So I think we have our stories on lockdown. I think we have our pictures on lockdown. However, there are definitely challenges that would show forth in the pictures when the film comes out that the audience would then see and then criticize. Yes, some of these mistakes we can avoid them, but I'll give.
But is it really a mistake if movie doesn't have storyline? I mean, that's like I don't think that mistake is maybe when you see a scene that's it's not properly placed. But if there's no storyline, how is that mistake?
I don't think any writer would write something that doesn't have a storyline. So when a film is made, it's made probably 3 times. When you write it, when you shoot it, and then when you edit it. Right. So that's like 3 different times you make one film. So the writer could write something, and that whatever the writer writes could have all the storyline that is required. We get to shoot, and there are challenges with certain things, maybe actors' chemistry or locations didn't fit the character or the costume didn't work or something might just go wrong that would then change the trajectory of that story in a way. And then when we get to edit, it's a different ballgame entirely. So I don't know if it's solely a story problem from the script itself. So I feel like when it goes through all of these processes, some of these changes might tweak a few things in the story. It might take away, it might add,
I love you. You're definitely a Nollywood person because, you're very diplomatic answer. Yeah, I mean, and still sticking with Nollywood, what about the comments or observation that people have nowadays that Nollywood has so many influencers and people that are famous who don't have any acting talent, and they're taking away, quote unquote, taking away opportunities from people that actually have the talent? What are your thoughts on that one?
I'm going to play devil's advocate. So I think it's a 50-50 thing. I feel like whilst actors should be given all the respect and credit for the work that they do, we cannot also take away from the influencers who, so to say, stumbled on the career, because I feel like those guys as well put in the work, right? I would use maybe a name that we probably all know, Mr. Macaroni, for instance. He started off being a social media influencer and did his thing online, and now he's in movies. And I do not think you can strip him of his gifts. Like
No, he's talented.
Yes, exactly. He's very talented, right? So it's not a fair thing to say that the influencers are coming in to sort of wash down what the actors are doing, right?
To be fair, I said influencers that can't act. I didn't say him.
Well, so there's the marketing side. Okay, I get that. There's marketing side as well. It's okay to have actors who can act, but there's something else that any producer would look for in an actor, and that's marketing power. So if we have a face that people want to see and the director thinks he can coach them well enough to deliver, why not? Unfortunately, you might get on set and that might not come out the way you expect, but you are still getting something out of it, which is the marketing power that the person has. So it's a 50-50 thing.
No, and I think, and I make that comment, or I share that, I guess, criticism from people, because I don't think it's a Nollywood thing. I think it seems like it's a global observation, even in the States and elsewhere. I'm sure you heard about Jennifer Aniston, the criticism that she received when she said that she feels like people that are popular on TikTok or YouTube are diluting the actor's job. So I don't necessarily think that it's specific to Nollywood. And I'm not saying that these people dilute the actor's job, but I'm just saying it's an observation that people who have been in the industry for a long time are saying that, it seems like all these people, again, that can't act. Are taking away opportunities from people that can actually act. But your point is valid. These people that you say cannot act, they bring the marketing side. So if you see that, Chukwuka, who cannot act, is on the billboard, you're like, okay, let me go and watch it, right?
But eventually, Chukwuka will act and act good. Do you understand? No, not this Chukwuka, but like...
No, God, but will he though?
Yeah, so I'm not going to mention this person's name because it will be funny to them, but I know of an actor that is so hugely celebrated right now. And when this guy started, fam, it wasn't pleasant to watch. So if you get an influencer who's popular and then you put them in a film, I feel like the way the industry is structured, you can't be in Nollywood for 3, 4, 5 years and the industry will not grow on you. So if you're an actor and you come in as an influencer and you spend a couple of years, after a while you've worked with several directors. They're like your guides and teachers and coaches. So over the years, they would influence you in a way, and that influencer who could not act would then become,
But I think that also is contingent on the influencer or person who is popular wanting to learn and grow. Some people just want to be in it for, exactly, for the glam or for the entertainment value. They're not really trying to grow their career. So that's a very fair point that you made. And that's really true, because I'm trying to act as well, and people are not giving me opportunities because they feel like maybe my acting is whack. I don't think it's whack.
So again, this goes back to the social media influencers, right?
Of course, yeah.
They use those platforms. If nobody else give them an opportunity to go to the big films, to go to the big screen rather, they use the platform that they had. They had TikTok, they had Instagram. They made videos on these platforms and showcased their talent.
No, yeah, because I auditioned for something and the person never got back to me, and I'm like, at least you could have just told me that Sade wasn't good. Like, again, I must say this, I actually do think I can act. I just need someone to give me a chance. Maybe maybe in your next movie,
maybe
you cast me.
Maybe, just maybe.
Just maybe. Yeah, just maybe. All right. So a few weeks ago, you had tweeted about your experience with production houses in Nigeria and the need for a system that protects the interests of the crew. What was going on? What prompted that tweet? Can you share more and shed more light?
Okay. Very sensitive topic.
Sensitive, Papa.
Anyway, so at that time, I'm still dragging for my balance. Basically, I shot on, not me personally, but my company had shot for a production that is 2 months now. They wrapped 2 months ago, and we've not gotten our balance, and the producer or EP writer is just quiet. I just feel like it's very disrespectful, because we know that this industry is still growing. So we don't get paid like some ridiculous amount of money that would really sustain us for a very long time. So many of us live from job to job, right? So if you hold people's money back for that long, 2 months after the hard work that they've done for however long that we were on set for. I think it's just very unfair. Like I said, it's almost wickedness at this point, and it's because I don't think they respect crew, because I don't think this would be done to any actor. I don't think any actor would go on a film set, finish, and 2 months after they've not been paid. I don't think we'll bring crew from outside Nigeria and not pay them 2 months after. And what's even most disrespectful is the fact that there is no communication. Nigerians are lovely people, but film crew people are exceptionally beautiful people. We're very understanding. We're so passionate about the filmmaking that if a producer came to us and said, hey, we are running low on funds, we're going to get funds in another 2 weeks or 1 month, please just bear with us, I believe there is no crew in Nigeria that would not understand. They would wait and they would understand and be very patient. But the fact that a producer can just be quiet is extremely disrespectful.
I don't know, Chukwuka. Like I said, I hate to rant. And I think one of the things that a lot of us have to learn is the art of communication. Mm-hmm. I can't kill you if you don't have my money. But how you communicate that to me is the difference between me getting upset and me, like you said, understanding that, okay, we don't have enough funds right now. Like, when we get it, we'll get, but this radio site, I don't know what it is. The way we treat each other, I don't know. And maybe it's my psychology background and just observing people. Like, you said you love to observe people as well. But there's just this thing with us that we just treat people like trash, particularly when we feel like they can't offer us anything. Mm-hmm. But if it is someone that we think is important and famous, we would be rolling on the floor as if you're having a deliverance session. It's such a weird thing. Yep. But I want to go through some of the solutions that you proffered, because the beautiful thing that you just didn't complain about, the situation. You talked about the solutions, and I want to ask you if you feel like the solutions will actually work. So some of the solutions that you proffered were, you said, start here, read, negotiate terms of contract, sign contract before work commences. You also said contracts must state the date 60% is to be paid and the date that the balance will be paid. You said contracts must state the exact start and end date of shoot. You said not weeks. You said the crew of some departments across the industry must be transparent with one another. Know what your counterpart earns. Whether that one is going to work, we'll get to that point, Know what your counterpart earns. You said there should be a reasonable fee for every department and no one should earn less than said base fee. I cannot understand why we shoot with foreign crew, and I can promise you they get the most professional treatment. So these solutions are great. Do you think it's actually going to work? Because, we have a culture of everybody wants to hide. You don't want to share what you have learned. Because if I share, then somehow Chukwuka is going to become bigger than me. And woe betide the universe for that to happen, because I must be bigger than him. So talk about that.
So to be fair, right, that was it was an emotional tweet. And I couldn't delete it after, because it has been retweeted and all of that, right? I don't know for sure if everybody knowing what everybody is paid is actually a good move. However, everything I said, I stand firmly by, because I have cases where production is ending and people have not signed, they're not given any contract to sign. People have not been paid 50% and the production is about to end. There are cases where there's going to be an extension and nobody has communicated. We know there's going to be an extension. It's not even a secret. We can see the shed. We've not shot a couple of things. But just the decency to come and ask, to come and tell the crew that, okay, there might be an extension. Can we have a conversation, right? Some of these producers just expect that, we're doing you a favor. This film's going to go on big platforms. So however we treat you is fine. So the way to protect yourself, I feel like, is going the legal route. If you are negotiating for a certain fee, say your fee is 10 naira, and you know that to get a lawyer to read your contract for you and talk to the production house's lawyer as well would cost 5 naira, you should charge 15 naira. Do you get? So that way it's not like you're taking money off your pay to sort a lawyer out. You've added it into your fee, and then you can be protected. And you have the right to say if the dates agree, because these days you get contract that says you're going on set for 10 weeks. What is 10 weeks? When does 10 weeks start? When does 10 weeks end? Because what they could then do is, or to make it worse, they won't say 10 weeks. They probably tell you 45 days. So which means if they don't shoot for 3 days straight, they're not counting those 3 days. They will calculate the days that they shot for. And then that keeps you longer, which means you can't do other jobs, and we earn from job to job. So if you're telling me for more than the time you agreed on, then you should pay me for that time. So if we have legal backings, we'll be able to walk out or even sue if needs be. But I just feel like treat everybody the same way. The respect you give to actors, give it to crew. The respect you give to foreign crew, give it to local crew.
It may have been an emotional tweet, but it was your truth.
Yes.
I feel like that's one thing that I don't like when we, in Nigeria in particular, someone says what is true and we say, kilon shele, like, shut up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously there's the time and place for discourse, but sometimes putting it out there is the way that the message gets sent. You know, it's kind of like, you know, music producers kind of saying that, you know, they need to have an association. I mean, music producers, they're wanting to have an association because they don't want to be cheated and all these different things. And a lot of them now are understand the importance of lawyers, you know. And to the point about foreign crew, I don't know. I think what I'm going to do is that all the guests that I interview, people are going to come into my WhatsApp group. We're going to be fasting and praying for Nigeria.
I will join.
You will join.
Yes.
Because I don't understand what it says, Chukwuka. Like, okay, if we say that if it's not a demonic problem, what could be the problem?
Greed. Selfishness.
Well, that selfishness, we say greed, right? But we know that greed doesn't apply to foreign people. That greed only applies to ourselves.
Yep.
So why are we confused when we see how Nigerians are treated outside the country? Because foreigners have seen how you treat your brother and sister. And they say that, oh, clearly these people think that it's okay to be treated like trash. So when we go outside, we treat you like trash. And you think that you're bigger than people, you are going to also be treated like trash. Mm-hmm. So it's such a very weird, I don't know, concept that people think that, oh, it's okay for me to treat my Nigerians, brothers and sisters or employees or whatever it is as rubbish. And then you're surprised when people are maltreating us outside. Like, what were you expecting? I don't know.
It doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up. Go add up. You know? All right. On a more positive note, let's talk about camera roll pictures, because you had already kind of alluded to in the beginning of the conversation the importance of behind the scenes photography. So talk to us about what camera roll pictures is and, you know, what you're trying to do with that.
So similar to how it was in uni with the club that I founded, it was to bring all the photographers and enthusiasts alike in one place, and then we grow together. Now, BTS is really new in Nigeria. And if I advance my skill to a certain level just by myself, and I'm the number one BTS guy in the world or whatever, it doesn't do much for Nollywood, because if there are 4 projects running at the same time, I can't be in all 4 productions. So what I'm trying to do with Camero is all of these things that I think I've learned and I'm still learning, pull as many other people, show them what BTS could be. Let's all be excellent, and then spread that excellence across all the productions that could possibly go in at a certain time, so that the content we push out for films that we market would all be top notch. And that's where the healthy competition starts from. And when there's healthy competition, of course, growth is inevitable.
That's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to all you're going to be doing with camera pictures. And it's interesting that you say that, you know, BTS photography is really still starting in Nigeria. It's you would think that that's actually like has taken off, but it really hasn't, So more power to all that you're going to do with your company and making sure that the ecosystem continues to grow and empowering more people to, come on board. I also want to just say that it's really great because I love when I see Nigerians show other Nigerians that there are more than one there is more than one way to get your foot into the industry. You don't have to be an actor. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be a producer. You don't have to be the sound design person. If your love is photography, you can actually pursue, so it's always, because I feel like sometimes you get pigeonholed into one thing and it doesn't have to be that way.
And another great benefit, personally, that photography has done for me is help me in my path to being a director. So when you are a photographer, it's sort of like you're limited, so to say, because with film, you have motion. You can block your actors. They move around the scene. You move your cameras. All these things help the story come to life, right? But with pictures, all you have to do is tell all that story in one image, right? So it's in a way limiting, but it helps you with the creativity side because now you know that you have just one frame. So where you put your subject is now important. How many of the set design are you going to show in that picture? What's important at this point? Is it the actor's face or is it the whole scene? So that foundation, and then now getting to directing, you can tell in a way when you see the frames in the short films I've done. There are certain frames that you know that this person has an eye for this thing, and the foundation came from photography.
And what are some of the short films that you have?
Yes.
Yeah, talk about that, please.
So my first short film was, is A Day in September. I shot that last year, and I'll be releasing it. This first time I'm saying this.
Yay! I love exclusives.
I'll be releasing it on my birthday, September 9.
Happy birthday in advance.
Yes, thank you. The other short film I have done was for a different production house, wasn't from my own company. Boot Up screened in Ghana a couple of weeks ago, and the screening has opened extra doors for us right now.
Congratulations.
So that'll be out in October. So one in September, one in October. You can watch A Day in September on YouTube on Camero's page, and you Boot Up on Vimeo, but we'll get all that information out when it's time.
Okay, that's great. Now, before we head on to the fun random questions, what changes overall do you hope to see in the Nigerian film industry? And maybe even by extension, the African film industry, maybe in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Because I'm very passionate about crew, I would say that crew members need to get more information and then develop themselves, because there's a level of value you know you're bringing to your project that you would not accept certain things. And I feel like even the production houses would treat you differently if you brought a certain level of value. If they think, for instance, I don't think even a Nigerian crew who is a director, for instance, would get the same treatment a BTS person would get, because he's a director and I think you're bringing a certain level of value. So in whatever craft you're doing, if you're a props master, if you're a BTS person, if you're even a production assistant, the way you deliver your job, the value you bring will determine how you'll be received and treated. So I think that that's an important part. We need to focus on ourselves and develop ourselves. We need to get legal backings, like I said earlier. That's very important.
Get your lawyers.
Yes, get your lawyers, pay your lawyers. We also need to pay crew members more generally, because I feel like this is the impact of paying crew members well. When you pay crew members well, they can invest in themselves, go to film schools, go for film festivals, take courses, and bring more value to you. If they can't afford these things, they will pretty much be stuck on whatever level they're at and depend on learning on the job. And if I learn on the job, there's a lot of mistakes that will happen on production that could have been avoided if these guys had the finance to fund education for themselves. If you pay these people well, there are certain costs, even this is a bit extreme, but there are certain costs that come up during production that some of these crew members would willingly just take on. It could be within their department rather than run to production for every single penny. If they could afford it, they'll sort it out. So if the crew are happy, they're bringing way more value to the production than you can even imagine. If my initial agreement states a certain amount that I think is really good, and you have an extension of 4-5 days, and you're like, okay, there's no extra money, please do this for us. Because I'm already happy with my original pay, I don't mind doing extra 5 days for you. But if you've chopped my fee to almost nothing, and you have an extension, I'm first of all, and then I wasn't treated well, I'm first of all not going to want to do that extension. And if I do the extension, I'm going to have to renegotiate, and I want to get, you're going to spend more, basically. So I feel like those are the ways the industry can be a bit better. Just treat people better, feed crew. When you give your crew good accommodation and good feeding, you've solved half of your problems. Because even if there is no money, for instance, maybe an investor has bailed on you or whatnot, but the crew, they're happy, accommodation is great, feeding is great. These are things that would make them cushion the other things that the production might throw at them, because they're happy and they're comfortable.
No, those are good insights, but just a couple of things. First, I just remember that I've seen a couple of people talk about this issue about treatment of crew, and how some of them have even said, I don't want to even promote the movie because the way they treated me was trash. That's one the first thing. And then two, I do feel like I don't necessarily like how we tell Nigerians to always how do I explain this? Sorry. But we don't tell that to other people that are non-Nigerians. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like, you can't go and tell a non-Nigerian, let me just use, for example, American, and say, oh, okay. I mean, I don't know if you can know he's American, but I'm just saying non-Nigerian, for example. You can't tell them that, oh, we're going to go over by 5 days. Oh, yeah, sorry, you can't be paid. Please drink water and take it easy. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I feel like we always tell Nigerians to endure suffering. You get it? And I don't like that. Like, suffering is not anyone's destiny. And I feel like we glorify suffering in this country so much. So people should be paid what they deserve. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And it should not be, your point is valid though, but I feel like sometimes people take advantage of that and say, oh, just use this one, hold your body small, go and help us, I don't like that.
In return for exposure.
Exactly, for exposure, or you just don't want to do the right thing, so, but those are I don't want to color the great insights that you shared. So those are great. All right, cool. So we are going to go on to the fun, random questions segment. Are you ready?
Yes, I think so.
First question is, what is your favorite camera to use?
I don't know if I have a favorite camera, but I know that I love Canon because of the kind of colors I get from Canon.
Okay, that's good. Canon should come and support this podcast. Second question is, what are 2 tips that you would give to someone looking to become a professional photographer?
I would say practice. I mean, for any and everything you want to do, the only way to get better is to practice it over and over and over again. So one would practice a lot and read. Information is key. Shout out to Isioma Osaji. I mean, she played a huge role in everything in my career. So she introduced me to reading, basically. You can't understudy her or work with her and not be a big reader. So I read a lot, but I'm not really big on reading like actual books. So I do audio and then YouTube. So if you can't read, go on YouTube, watch videos, but you have to keep learning and you have to keep practicing.
That's awesome. And yeah, I interviewed DJ Clem and he also mentioned how awesome Isioma is. So
Yes.
It sounds like a really amazing
She's a
person.
rockstar.
That's awesome. She's a rockstar. Third question is, name 4 songs that are on repeat on your playlist.
I know this is going to come as a shocker. I'm not a music person.
Wait, what?
I know. It's so weird because I was trying to manage a music artist. You can see where I didn't work out, right?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, I do gospel and I like Ijola Balaba. I think Crayon. So maybe that and Maverick City.
Oh, Maverick City?
Yeah, Maverick City. Yeah.
Okay, so Crayon and that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm horrible. Music.
Are you serious?
I'm a film guy.
But you listen to gospel music now.
Yes.
But that's something. How can I say I'm not a music person? So is it that you're not a secular music person, but yeah, or just in general?
No, so I don't separate secular or not secular. I just enjoy. If I enjoy the music, I enjoy it. Like Nonso Bassi, for instance, probably not popularly very known, but he had this song 411. I love that song so much, and it's not gospel, it's about love. David B, obviously, he writes the most brilliant love songs, songs that they're so poetic, The artists that I just listen to their songs because of the meaning. So I think I'm more of a meaning kind of person, yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Fourth question is, as Mr. Movie Guy, what was the last movie that you watched and what did you enjoy about it?
So I would say 13 Lives. It was an emotional roller coaster. I loved how the director played with our emotions. I feel like he was very conscious of what he thought the audience was going to expect, and every time you're expecting something to happen, he doesn't let that thing happen. So it just takes you on this very weird emotional journey.
Final question, Chukwuka. What are 2 things that people do not know about you?
Maybe that I cut my hair every 2 days because I'm bald.
Second question. Second interesting fact about you.
I love kitchen sinks. I'm obsessed with kitchen sinks. I can't stay in the kitchen just washing the sink or washing dishes. I just love being in that space. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, that's
weird, very weird.
No, but that's really it. Yeah, it's not like it's just interesting. You
know how people use the toilet to think and stuff. I use the kitchen sink for that.
Wow, that's really interesting. Well, I love that. Thank you for sharing those 2 interesting, because those are definitely interesting things that people don't know about you. That's awesome. Now, as we wrap it up, Chukwuka, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
I would just say, for anybody, I'm not anywhere yet, but a lot of patience is required. Eventually you get there. So I think because of my background as a Christian, I rest on the assurance that God's word will definitely come to pass. So I know where I'm going. The journey might not be in 1 year or 2 years. Same for you, might not be 1 year or 2 years, might not be 5 years, might not be 10 years. It could take longer, but just be sure of where you're going. And for every moment that you're given, that moment is what determines your next one, where you're going next. So what you do with this moment right now is all that matters. Focus on today, give today your best, and tomorrow will be sure.
I love the personal development. Love it. And for people who are looking to learn more about you and the work that you do, where can they find you?
Across social media platforms at Chuks Osakwe. Chuks is spelled as CHUX, then Osakwe, OSAKWE, across all platforms.
Chukwuka, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Folashade, for having me.
Thank you to Chukwuka Osakwe for an insightful conversation. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Chuks Osakwe. So that's CHUXOSAKWE. You can also check out Camroll Pictures on Instagram and YouTube. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to take a few minutes to rate us on your favorite podcast platform. It makes a huge difference in allowing the show to get discovered by more people. Thank you so much in advance. This episode is produced, edited, and mixed by Folashade Anozie. The show is powered by Nonconform Productions. Theme song for the show is by John Akinola. You can also check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TheSNCPodcast. Thank you for listening.